Imagine you're trying to stop this massive leak in a dam,
Right.
right? And I mean, most people would naturally just grab a bucket.
Right, yeah. Or maybe they try to patch the hole with some concrete.
Exactly. Or, if they're feeling particularly optimistic, they just put up a sign that says, like, please do not let the water through.
Yeah, you just manage the symptoms. I mean, you try to teach people how to survive the flood. It's really the standard human response to any crisis.
But what if someone came along and just said, no, you're doing this all wrong. We actually need to vaporize the entire river.
Just get rid of it.
Right, like completely dismantle the dam and just redesign the very concept of water from scratch. So today, you and I, we're taking a deep dive into a manifesto that essentially wants to vaporize the river of human society.
It's quite the ambition.
It really is. We're looking at this highly specific, frankly fascinating ideological document from November 2021, and it's by an author named Xuefeng.
And I have to say, this document really does not tiptoe around its central premise. I mean, the title alone basically sets the stage.
What's the title again?
It's called Only Xuefeng-Style Communism Can Solve These Problems. And the scope of the problems it claims to, like, permanently cure is just staggering.
Right.
We're talking about environmental pollution, the global integrity crisis, official corruption, the breakdown of marriages, the production of poisonous food, drug abuse.
Just a casual list of everything wrong with the world.
Pretty much. I mean, you name a societal ill, and this framework claims to eradicate it completely.
Now, real quick, before we get into the actual architecture of all this,
Right.
we do need to set our usual ground rules for you listening. Because obviously, this is a highly politically and ideologically charged blueprint.
Oh, absolutely. Very charged.
So we want to be crystal clear here. We are not endorsing this, right?
Yeah.
And we aren't taking sides on the politics of it, whether left, right, or center. Our goal today is purely to impartially map out and analyze these incredibly unique ideas, just exactly as the author laid them out in the source text.
Right. We're just exploring the blueprints of this proposed society to see, how the plumbing works. We're not telling you to move in.
Exactly. Keep your moving boxes unpacked.
Yeah.
So to understand how this new society actually functions, we have to look at what it actively destroys first.
Yeah, because the ultimate thesis here is that modern human crises just can't be solved by any existing framework on Earth. I mean, the author outright dismisses the Western separation of powers.
Tosses it right out.
Gone. He says the ideas of Mao Zedong won't work. He completely rejects the ancient philosophical teachings of Confucius and Lao Tzu.
Which is huge.
It is. And he even claims that the major world religions, so Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, that they are fundamentally incapable of fixing our problems.
Which, I mean, that is an incredibly bold way to start a manifesto. If you throw out literally thousands of years of philosophy, religion, and political science, you're just left with a blank slate.
A completely blank slate.
You essentially have to rebuild human society from the molecules up. But to understand the society that gets built on that slate, we have to look at this one philosophical rule that governs everything else in this framework.
Yeah, there's this one specific sentence in the text that basically acts as the absolute bedrock for everything we're going to talk about today.
A core engine.
Right. The author writes, and I'm quoting here, "A good system is better than any form of moral preaching."
A good system is better than any form of moral preaching.
Okay. Yes, that is the engine of Xuefeng-style communism. Trying to educate people to be good or, relying on their internal moral compass is viewed as fundamentally flawed. It's just a waste of time.
Interesting.
He argues it is infinitely less effective than simply building an environment where it's literally structurally impossible to be bad.
I love that concept, actually, because it instantly makes me think of bowling with bumper lanes.
Oh, yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Right. Like, instead of spending 10 years teaching a child the absolute perfect throwing technique, which is essentially what moral preaching is, right?
Right.
You're trying to teach perfect form.
Yeah. Please throw it straight. Be a good person.
Exactly. Instead of doing that, you just block the gutters. You construct this physical system where the ball literally has to hit the pins, regardless of how clumsily you throw it.
That is exactly the mechanism at play here. Like, why rely on the unpredictable nature of human morality when you can just, engineer the environment to make immoral choices impossible?
Right. But, okay, if we take the bumper lanes idea, where you physically block the gutter, I'm trying to picture that applied to something incredibly messy and complex, like getting old.
Right.
Because you can't really bumper lane physical decline or vulnerability. So how does this structural philosophy actually tackle the fact that we all age and eventually need care?
Well, by completely dismantling how we currently handle vulnerability. I mean, in this framework, our current systemic approaches to the elderly are viewed as total failures. It rejects the traditional model of relying on your children to take care of you, because the author argues that just places this immense unfair burden on the youth.
I mean, a lot of people today would probably agree with that.
Sure. But it equally rejects relying on state welfare or nursing homes. The text explicitly calls nursing homes, quote, a very sad way of providing for the elderly.
Which is fair, because a nursing home often isolates the vulnerable from the vibrant parts of society. So
Mhm.
if the kids aren't in charge and the state isn't, locking you in a facility, what is the mechanism for care?
Total seamless integration.
Okay, what does that look like?
The proposed solution is this communal living model where the elderly live directly among young people and children. They aren't separated by age or capability at all.
Oh, wow. So they're just completely mixed in.
Exactly. They're just part of the daily fabric of the community. They get to enjoy a leisurely life without the stress of being a burden to, like, a specific biological child.
That's interesting.
And the author points out this isn't just a theory. He claims this specific model of multi-generational, non-biological integration was perfectly proven over 11 years of practice
Wait, really? Where?
in an experimental community called Lifechanyuan's Second Home.
Okay, that is a fascinating detail. It kind of grounds these wild ideas in an actual working prototype.
Yeah, 11 years is a decent run for an experiment like that.
But wait, if the elderly are integrated with the children, um, we have to talk about the children themselves, because this is where the traditional family unit, like the cornerstone of almost every society on Earth, gets entirely vaporized.
Oh, completely. It's totally dismantled.
Because in this system, children are not raised by their parents.
Not at all. Child rearing becomes a purely collective endeavor. Basically, the children belong to the collective and they are raised by the collective.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit, because the biological drive to protect and raise your own offspring is, well, it's arguably the strongest force in human nature.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. If I'm a parent, my kid is my kid. How does the author justify just entirely severing that bond?
Well, by arguing that the exclusive parent-child bond is exactly where society goes wrong.
Really? How so?
Think about the friction it causes. Parents spoil their children, right? They indulge them, or conversely, they pass down their own massive psychological flaws.
Okay, true. We've all seen that.
Right. So by making child rearing collective, you standardize the upbringing. The collective basically acts as a buffer against bad parenting.
So it's a bumper lane for raising kids.
Exactly. Furthermore, the author points out a huge structural benefit. If children belong to an entire integrated community and they never leave its protective bubble, well, child abduction becomes structurally impossible.
Wow. Okay, I see the mechanical logic there.
Yeah.
If no one owns the child, no one can steal the child, and no single flawed parent can mess them up.
That's the idea.
But if you remove that traditional family anchor,
Yeah.
the parents, the kids, that biological safety net, how does this system account for the individual emotional needs of the adults?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm thinking specifically about adults who are single or divorced, people who don't have a built-in partner to navigate life with. How do they fit in?
Right. So the framework addresses adult emotional and physical needs with a logic that is highly pragmatic, and I mean completely devoid of traditional romanticism.
Very clinical.
Very. It acknowledges that there's a rising number of bachelors and divorced individuals in the world, and it just bluntly asks in the text, how should their sex lives be solved?
Which is, frankly, a question most political manifestos completely ignore.
Oh, 100%. Usually governments just pretend human biology doesn't exist outside of marriage.
Yeah, they really do. So how does this manifesto tackle it?
Well, the author argues that ignoring it or trying to restrict it with heavy-handed moral regulations inevitably leads to endless social problems.
Like what?
The spread of sexually transmitted diseases, deep psychological isolation, things like that.
Okay, so what is the bumper lane for human intimacy then?
Full absorption into the community mode. Entering this specific communist society supposedly perfectly solves the bachelor's dilemma.
Just by being in the community.
Right, by removing the exclusivity of traditional marriage and incorporating absolutely everyone into a collective living situation, adult needs are met organically within the community.
Okay.
So there's no desperation, no isolation, and really no friction of a competitive dating market.
But wait, if everyone is living in this giant, deeply integrated pool where all those traditional boundaries are gone, How do you maintain trust?
Trust is a big one.
It is. We hear so much today about the integrity crisis,
Hmm.
people scamming each other, breaking promises, leveraging relationships for their own gain.
So the manifesto has a brilliant, albeit very mechanical, diagnosis for the integrity crisis. It basically argues that a lack of integrity only exists when there are conflicts of interest.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. If I have absolutely nothing to gain by lying to you, I'm just not going to exert the energy to lie.
Precisely. If there's no money to be made off your neighbor and no power to leverage over them, the incentive to scam them vanishes entirely.
So no conflict of interest, no scams.
Right. And to enforce this, everyone in the society follows a specific behavioral code. It's referred to as the 800 values for new era human being.
800 values? That's a lot of values to memorize.
It is, but it operates as the rule book that replaces traditional laws. It's designed specifically for zero-friction living. Because everyone's basic needs are guaranteed by the collective, the economic pressure that drives cronyism and corruption simply evaporates.
But, okay, economic pressure is only half the battle.
What's the other half?
Humans are still humans, right? We
Yeah.
get jealous, we get our hearts broken, we hold grudges over petty things.
Oh, for sure.
And to be fair, the text actually admits this. It concedes that what it calls affectional disputes, basically drama between men and women, still happen even in this community.
Yes, it does acknowledge that.
But the solution it proposes for romantic drama literally blew my mind.
You're talking about the relocation mechanism.
Yes, the relocation mechanism.
Yeah.
It is wild. So the author says that right now, drama happens because the system isn't fully operational. Yet, there are too few of these communal homes built.
Right, the network isn't big enough yet.
Exactly. But once fully operational, the ultimate solution is just constant relocation.
Mhm.
If a couple is together today, the system might intentionally send them to entirely different communal homes tomorrow.
Yep.
And the text explicitly notes there is, quote, little chance for them to see each other again for the rest of their lives.
It is an incredibly radical concept.
It really is. When I first read that, my immediate thought was just how extreme it sounded. Like, you're in love, cool, you're moving to the other side of the country tomorrow.
Right, it seems brutal.
But then I realized it's actually exactly like how high security banks handle their vault staff.
Oh, how so?
Well, you never let two employees work the vault together for too long, right? Because if they get too comfortable, they might form a conspiracy to rob the place.
I see where you're going with this.
So the bank constantly rotates the staff to break up any potential alliances. Except, in this society, the conspiracy is just falling in love.
That's a really sharp analogy.
You're intentionally severing romantic attachments so people will only focus on what the text calls their own qualities.
Because in this framework, exclusive love is a conspiracy against the collective. Permanent emotional bonds are viewed as a source of immense friction.
I mean, they're not entirely wrong about the friction part.
Just think about how much of human history, wars, crimes of passion, hoarding of wealth, all of it is driven by someone trying to protect or elevate their specific partner or family above everyone else.
Troy literally burned down because of an affectional dispute.
Exactly. So by removing the permanence of relationships, you remove the drama. You force individuals to focus entirely on collective harmony rather than personal, exclusive attachments.
You eliminate the friction by eliminating the exclusivity.
Right.
Okay, so let's track this. You engineer out family bias by making children communal. You engineer out romantic jealousy by rotating the adults like bank tellers.
Right.
You're systematically dismantling every single reason a human being might choose themselves over the group. And that exact same structural logic is how this manifesto tackles actual malicious crime too, isn't it?
It is. If you can eliminate interpersonal drama through structural barriers, you can apply that identical structural logic to criminal behavior.
So how does it handle something like corruption?
Let's look at it. The text states that corruption has plagued society for thousands of years because there are always people who, quote, riot on the heads of the common people.
Which is the classic dynamic. You have a manager, an official, a boss, and they inevitably end up skimming off the top while basically bullying the workers.
So how does Xuefeng-style communism stop the skimming?
How?
By eliminating the top entirely. It doesn't use anti-corruption seminars, it doesn't launch internal affairs investigations, it just removes the concept of an official. In this system, everyone is a laborer. No one is a manager. The logic is bulletproof in its simplicity. If there are no officials, The problem of official corruption cannot biologically exist.
It's the bumper lanes again. You
Exactly.
can't have a corrupt mayor if the concept of a mayor has just been erased from the dictionary.
Precisely. And this mechanical approach extends all the way down to everyday street crime. The text claims stealing will become completely extinct.
Really? Extinct?
Yes. And the reasoning is fascinating. It's not because people suddenly become saints and decide not to steal. It's because of the structural reality of the community.
Okay, walk me through that.
Think about the mechanics of stealing in a society with zero private property. First, you have nowhere to store stolen goods because you don't have a private house or private room.
Because everything is communal.
Right. Second, there's no market to sell the stolen goods because no one uses money to buy things from each other anyway.
True.
And finally, there's fundamentally no need to steal in the first place because the collective already provides what you need.
It makes stealing a completely illogical act. I mean, why steal a television if you literally do not have a private living room to put it in?
Exactly. The incentive structure is entirely gone.
The same goes for food safety, which was a point that really stuck out to me in the document. Because today we constantly worry about poisonous food.
Oh, absolutely. Pesticides, microplastics.
Right, corporations cutting corners just for a fraction of a cent in profit. But the text asserts that poisonous food simply won't be produced under this model.
Because the creators eat what they grow.
Yes. There's no faceless corporation shipping food to a demographic halfway across the world that they will never have to actually look in the eye.
Right. You grow the food, and then you sit down in the communal dining hall and eat it yourself.
So the incentive to cut corners with toxic chemicals is literally suicidal.
Exactly. And then we reach the darker, more destructive vices. Drug abuse, prostitution, fighting, bullying.
How does bumper lane those?
The text states these are virtually non-existent because there is, quote, no condition or opportunity to engage in them. You're living in a highly visible, highly integrated communal space.
So everyone sees everything.
Right. But there is also a powerful, almost primal deterrent mentioned here, exile.
Ah, right. I remember this. So if you somehow manage to bypass all the structural bumper lanes and you commit these acts anyway, what actually happens to you?
You lose your place in the community. Doing these things means you'll have no place to stand in this civilized group. You will be cast out.
That's heavy.
It is.
Yes.
In a world where all your needs, your social life, and your safety are completely tied to the collective, the threat of exile is essentially a threat of total isolation. The fear of losing that collective safety net basically ensures absolute compliance.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second here because we have a blueprint here that sounds, honestly, so elegantly simple on paper.
Yet on paper.
Yes.
You change the rules of the game, you remove the managers, you remove private property, you rotate romantic partners, and suddenly, poof, utopia. But it begs a massive unavoidable question. If this system theoretically cures everything from official corruption to theft to loneliness just by tweaking the structural variables, why on earth hasn't the whole world rushed to adopt it?
Well, what makes this manifesto so fascinating is that the author is actually highly self-aware about the resistance to this utopian vision.
He knows people don't want it.
Exactly. He doesn't pretend this is an easy sell. Instead, he offers this surprisingly cynical, deeply psychological diagnosis of human nature to explain why people actively reject paradise.
And he breaks this resistance down into three main roadblocks, right?
Yes. The first is the government.
Because governments are made up of officials.
Exactly. The text argues that governments will never willingly allow the system because officials naturally want to enjoy special treatment. And because special treatment literally does not exist in Xuefeng-style communism, those in power will actively suppress the system to protect their perks.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
Then the second roadblock is the wealthy.
Right. The text states that the rich are terrified of true communism because their primary psychological desire is to be above the rest.
They want to feel superior.
They do. Because this proposed system mandates absolute structural equality, it destroys the very concept of being above anyone else. Therefore, the rich will fight it tooth and nail.
But the third roadblock is the one that really made me stop and think. It's the common people.
Yeah, this one is rough.
It really is. The text argues that even ordinary people, like people who are currently suffering in difficult, exhausted lives, secretly harbor a desire to live better than their neighbors. It's this hidden, tragic psychology of the human ego.
It's a profound indictment of human nature. The text claims that because this new society makes it impossible to ever realize the dream of being superior to your neighbor, people would literally rather suffer in their current exhausted state than live in a peaceful society where they can't feel just a little bit better than someone else.
Let that really sink in for a second. People would rather be miserable and have the chance to be better than you than be perfectly happy, but entirely equal to you.
It's pretty bleak.
It is. Yet, despite this incredibly cynical view of the human ego, the text just pivots to a declaration of absolute inevitability, particularly regarding the destiny of China.
Yes, the author argues that this model isn't just an option, it is the unavoidable future.
Why unavoidable?
Well, the reasoning behind this inevitability is intense. The text claims that capitalism fundamentally fails in China due to unique historical and cultural conditions.
Right.
It argues that historically, whenever people accumulate wealth there, they inevitably face a survival crisis. They either get robbed, kidnapped, or, as the text provocatively puts it, when the government's finances are in trouble, the rich become the targets of harvesting.
Harvesting. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a stark, chilling way to describe wealth redistribution or state intervention during financial crises.
It is, but the author doesn't spare socialism either.
No, he bluntly states that the socialist road has also failed in practice, primarily because it hasn't resulted in the common people actually enjoying a happy, free, and blessed life. So, capitalism gets you harvested, socialism leaves you unhappy, and therefore, only this radical new framework works.
That's the argument.
But I find a profound paradox
Yeah.
right at the center of this entire document.
What's that?
Well, the author builds this whole philosophy on the idea that systems are better than moral preaching.
Right.
That if you build the right bumper lanes, people will naturally bowl a perfect game of life.
Right.
Yet in the very same breath, he admits the system is incredibly difficult to launch because humans are inherently, fundamentally wired to want to be better than everyone else. Isn't that a paradox?
It really is.
If the human ego is that stubborn, can any system truly override it without eventually becoming, well, a prison?
It's the ultimate friction point of any utopian vision. You're trying to build a flawless, frictionless machine using inherently flawed, friction-generating components.
Us, human beings.
Exactly. But despite acknowledging these massive psychological hurdles, the text ends on a note of absolute, unshakable confidence.
He doesn't back down.
Not at all. It predicts that sooner or later, mankind will inevitably exhaust all other options and enter this exact mode of life.
And what a mode of life it promises to be. I mean, just to recap the sheer audacity of the architecture we've explored today, we are looking at a blueprint that promises a literal utopia.
A completely reinvented society.
Right. A world where crime, corruption, and loneliness are structurally engineered completely out of existence. Where everyone is a laborer and no one is a boss. Where children are protected by belonging to everyone, and where couples are deliberately separated to maintain social peace and prevent toxic, exclusive attachment.
It is a complete systemic overhaul of the human experience.
It really is.
And the author leaves us with one final staggering claim to emphasize just how perfect he believes this specific architecture is.
Why remember this part?
The text asserts that no matter who you are, even if you are the most brilliant scholar, even if you possess extraordinary once-in-a-generation intelligence, you could not possibly design a better system.
But it actually goes even further than that. The text literally says that not even the second coming of Jesus Christ, or Maitreya, the future Buddha, or the Ziwei saint, which is the ultimate messianic figure in Chinese prophecy.
Right.
Not even these divine saviors could create a more perfect way of life for human beings than Xuefeng-style communism. That is just a mic drop of cosmic proportions. He is basically saying, I've solved the puzzle that God couldn't.
It certainly leaves a lasting impression, doesn't it?
To say the least.
But let's bring us back to your daily life, to you listening. Whether you view this November 2021 manifesto as a visionary blueprint for human salvation, or, as a dystopian nightmare that strips away every single thing that makes us human.
Both valid reactions, honestly.
Absolutely. But either way, it forces us to ask a profound question about the world we currently inhabit. Like, how many of your daily stresses, our societal failures, and your personal conflicts are just byproducts of the systems we accept as entirely normal?
Right. Are we just endlessly grabbing buckets to cache the water when we really should be looking at the dam itself?
It's a lot to process.
It really is. So we're going to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own as you go about your day.
Think back to that core trade-off this framework demands.
Exactly. If a perfectly engineered system requires you to give up all your special, exclusive attachments, Your exclusive right to raise your own children, your permanent bond with a romantic partner, and your secret, deeply human desire to be just a little bit better off than your neighbor.
Yeah.
Is the total elimination of your suffering actually worth the cost of your individuality?
That's a question that really defines the razor-thin line between a utopia and a dystopia.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.